In this video, I'm going to show you how to work with Scotchprint 1080. This is a piece that I just finished, and it's a dash piece that I cut a hole in for custom seat heater control, and I'm going to do the other side, and I'll show you how I did the wrap on the other side. In regard to the Scotchprint itself, as you can see, there's two different kinds here. This one is the gloss carbon fiber, gloss black carbon fiber, and this one is the matte black. There's really not a lot of difference between them. Just kind of reflects less light. I tried the gloss black in my car, and it didn't seem to match the leather quite as well. This is for an '07 Mustang V6. And this one, ends up looking a little more gray, which I think is closer to the interior leather, of the Mustang. In regard to the Scotchprint, there's two different kinds. I called 3M and the Dynoc, if you're seeing those available online, is rated for interior only. So if you're doing a project for inside the car, that's okay to use, but it is not rated for exterior use. If you want to do something for exterior, you can use the Scotchprint 1080, which is what both of these are, and of course you can also use it for interior. I've cut a strip here to fit this piece, which is the other dash piece. You can see on this piece that I've got some adhesive residue left over on it. It's because I already tried to wrap this piece once in the gloss black. Didn't really like how it came out, so I wanted to go with the matte. And at the time, I didn't have any of the 94 primer, 3M 94 primer. Like this guy in the can right here. You can get this for like 15 bucks on Amazon or eBay. Well worth it. You don't absolutely need it, but if you're going to do something that's semi-permanent, why not? I was using this General Trim adhesive, which, as you can see, is a medium strength adhesive, but this is the kind of residue you get left behind. I used isopropyl alcohol, 50-50 solution. If you use more than that, it just strips off your finish. And use soap and water, use Goo Gone. Really couldn't get any more off than this, SOS pads, everything. So just going to go ahead with the 94 primer on this. It should stick fine. Hopefully I won't get, any bubbles from the slight bit of residue left behind. But the Scotchprint is thick enough that I don't think I'll have that problem. This will be my fourth time wrapping one of these pieces, so I've got it down pretty well. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, check the sides, make sure that I have enough space on each side, and I'm going to mark this piece right here, this little lip, which will poke through the Scotchprint. As you can see, it's got a little lip here. It's the only thing on here that kind of pokes out, so I'm going to stick it to this long flat side, use this to sort of anchor it. It's a good spot, and then once I get this long flat side stuck down, I'll work on this kind of challenging little curve right here, and once you get that done, get the curve done, it's pretty smooth sailing after that. Alright, I made a, little outline of that notch, so I'm just going to cut it out now, and really I'm just going to make one cut right down the center of that. And when in doubt, cut a little less. That way you can always cut a little more, and the Scotchprint stretches, so it will, if it's just a little bit short, it will stretch around it. So I'll fit this piece into the slot that I've created. Just to sort of get a dry fit on it. And you can see how I'm just going to sort of set it on there. And just getting an idea, do I have enough space on each side to cover each side? I have plenty of room on this side. Plenty of room on this side. Look at that. And plenty of room at the top to fold it over to get that top piece. So, have enough material, so what I'm going to do now is apply the adhesive primer onto the piece, and then I'll peel this off, stick it on, and go from there. It'd probably be best if you had a sponge or something to apply this with. I don't have anything better than a paper towel, so I'm going to use that. Just dipping a little corner into it. It spreads pretty well. It'll start to get wet and then evaporate pretty quickly. Just cover all the areas the Scotchprint is going to stick to. I think the edges are more important than the face, because that's where you really want it to hold so there's no peeling. Generally on the flat parts it'll stick no problem. I'm probably going a little wetter than I need to, probably using a little more than I need to, but and according to the directions, you're supposed to let it sit for 5 minutes, apply a second coat, which I will do, and then meet you back here. Alright, it's been about 5 minutes or so since the second application, so I'm going to peel the Scotchprint now, get ready for application. If I can do it with these gloves on. I like to wear gloves just because there's a lot of rubbing of the Scotchprint involved, and the oils in your hands and whatnot might get on there. I don't know if it was my imagination or not, but in my first application it seemed like I was getting a little bit of wear on it. Perhaps it was too much stretching. So I am fitting the slot into the cut that I've made. Tab A into slot B, if you will. Make sure. You can see I have the slot in, and now I just want to get the face of it flat as best I can before I start really working with it. Smooth this out. Now here where we've got it bunched up, we can fix that with some heat later, but I'll try to pull it out a little as best I can. That's not too bad. And fix the rest later. And from here, just want to get a nice smooth application on the face. This is the cutout here, which I'll leave for now. Don't want to stick it to the sides yet, because I want to worry about the curve first. So I'll leave the sides unstuck. And hopefully keep the Scotchprint sticking to itself. So I've got a fairly flat face. We'll need to fix a couple creases here, but I'll show you how I'll do that in a minute. Just trying to get a smooth transition on the edge here with no bubbles. Again, I can fix that later with some heat, but just trying to do what I can on the edges here. Okay, and we are prepared now to apply some heat to get at that challenging corner I mentioned. Alright, ready to apply some heat here. I'm just using a regular hair dryer, no heat gun needed. I'm going to use it on the warm setting, not even the hot, and on low fan. Just heating it up initially, holding the hair dryer about 6 inches away or so. I just want to start to get this curve going. As you can see, it kind of molds with the application of the heat, and you just go a little bit at a time. Try to get all the corners, and once it starts to resist and doesn't want to continue folding into the corners, add a little more heat. To get these wrinkles out, I'm just pulling on this and kind of forcing the bubbles out. It's really the material stretching and forces the bubbles out. We add a little more heat. Just pressing my thumb into the seam here and pulling on the outside to keep any wrinkles and bubbles from forming. And that is pretty much the whole curve already. Now I just need to apply some heat to the rest, get all of the wrinkles out, keep pulling on the edges as I heat it to get these wrinkles to pull out, and then we'll worry about the trim. While it's still warm, I'm folding it over the edge here just to create a natural kind of edge and sticking surface here, kind of make it conform to the edge is what I'm trying to say. And then once you have all of your flat surfaces pretty much worked out and covered, free of wrinkles and bubbles, then you'll want to tackle some of the corners. As you can see here, I've got the flat surface done, and I'm just going to work this seam in a little bit so that it's nice and flat. It rolls over the edge before I trim it. Just going to run my thumb along the seam. This is usually when I break my gloves. The wrinkles out first. And form the seam. And there goes the glove. And the other glove. And as you can see, kind of made the edge here. So now I can trim it when I'm ready. And about those corners that I mentioned, as you can see here, you've got this corner and I'm not quite sure what to do about it at first. Do I trim it here? Do I trim it there? Do I fold it over? What do I do about it exactly? Well, I found the easiest way is just to heat the corner, pull along all the edges so that it wraps nicely around the corner so that you have no folds or edges, anything funny looking. It'll just wrap very naturally around those corners. So that's what I'm going to do now. got nice edges now without any folds or anything, and I'll just trim the rest off in a bit. Alright, so as you can see, I've got it all wrapped. I cut the trim, just took a razor, ran it down, just took the excess off, tucked it into the edge here with my fingernail just to get it in there pretty good. And get all the edges tucked around. Once you get it formed around the edges, you can just sort of roll it, and it will stick pretty well. You can see the underside a little bit, and the edges are just kind of formed around the side and sticking with the promoter and the natural sticky backing. And last thing I have to do is I've got this little window piece left, so I'll just I won't cut all the way to the edge because I can just roll it over. So I'm just going to make a little X in the window, and I can just fold these over. I could trim off the lips, but I think with the X it'll kind of form better around due to its consistency. My edges are a little rough here. I used a Dremel on it, and this plastic piece tends to chip a little bit, and the seat heater controls that fit in here, I wanted to make sure they were snug, and I didn't want to sand too much and you know, have it be too loose. So that explains the rough edges a little bit, and I knew no one would see it. Actually, maybe better off with the razor here. And I'm just going to trim off these last little pieces. And done, ready for installation.